Okay, we're back with another segment with Palmer Wilson. We were talking about August 8th and the Ad Authority's budget and the discussion about the two chambers, the Southeast Volusia Chamber of Commerce in New Smyrna Beach and the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber in Port Orange, where there was an issue about they didn't meet the requirements. They failed in their obligations, according to Renee Talavas, the interim director here, acting director, and of course the long-standing experienced West Volusia director. You presented the budget to the board, explained it. Tell us what the response was from other board members in terms of defending the chamber contracts.
Well, it's a pretty large budget. It's on a big spreadsheet. I'd stop periodically throughout the presentation to make sure the board members understood where we're at, asked if they want to change anything, and so forth. When I got to the chamber business, I handed out Renee's reports to everybody, commented on what she had responded, noted for them that the current budget did not provide for contracts for either one of the chambers, and asked them if they had any questions and what did they want to do, since this was a change from last year.
And there was no reaction. Everybody was okay with it.
No one asked any questions. I think I asked them twice, are you sure? Are you all right with this? Went through the rest of the budget, and then they took a vote, and they voted 7-0 to approve the budget as presented. And in fact, that budget as presented was then subsequently provided to the county council, county government, and then the county council with no money for the chambers.
And it's ironic that both the headline surf marketing agreement with the Ad Authority and your general budget for the Ad Authority had no issues from the board members themselves on that day. They both were sort of anticlimactic. Here you are, you're in your apex of authority and leadership, and then later that day there's a vote taken at the county council. Joshua Wagner leads the charge. We got to get rid of this guy. Pat Patterson says we don't need a bozo like this. Nobody's done anything. Deb Denys, the District 3 County Councilwoman, is beside herself. How can you do this to this guy? Mr. Wilson single-handedly made sure Beach Weeks was continuing after Hamby's exit. This guy is the pillar of our community, and you're just throwing him away without doing your homework. That caused you to come back, right?
Well,
and defend your honor.
The August 8th meeting of the Ad Authority was in the morning, 11 to
Right.
about 1. I left and went to Claremont on one of my consulting jobs, and I'd spent the rest of the day with the Claremont City Commission on another project. I was on my way to eat dinner at 8:30 that night when I got a call from Jason Davis telling me what had happened.
And you also got a call from Deb Denys.
I got a voicemail from her. I was unable to reach her when I tried to get back.
And she sounded upset.
Yes, she did. She stressed the fact that she had supported me and tried hard. And I believe she was on it was a 4-3 vote, and it was Jason, her, and I believe Miss Cusack.
Joyce Cusack.
Yeah, who supported me on this. So I came back, thought about it, and I went back to the council 2 weeks later at their next meeting. I spoke for 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, presented my case, and essentially ended it by saying I didn't do anything wrong here, and I'm a little confused as to what exactly you removed me for. And that's when Mr. Wagner made his statements. I believe Ms. Denys made her statements. I believe Ms. Cusack made some statements. I left the chambers, and later that afternoon, in fact, I believe Mr. Wagner said if I had the next appointment, I'd reappoint you right now. I left the chambers, and I was notified later in the day that they had voted 7-0 to reappointment.
The ironic thing about that appointment was the intensity of Ms. Denys. Before we get to that, she made a comment to the effect of, unfortunately for you, Mr. Palmer, you were caught in a perfect political storm, and the result was negative, but she gave the sense of there's going to be another opportunity for reinstatement, and she was very positive, and you left thinking, well, we'll see what happens. Later that day, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure how the process. I thought they would have taken a vote there, and I didn't understand that they had to wait till later on. So I actually walked out of there saying, well, I said my piece.
Gave my best shot.
Nothing's going to happen. And later on in the session, when they had the vacancy because of my removal, it was Miss Cusack's
turn for appointment,
and she appointed me.
And then the council subsequently voted. They have to ratify. She doesn't just say, here's my guy, and that's it.
Right.
They voted 7-0. That must have made you feel really good. But before you answer that, Denys really ripped into Wagner, I can't say it any different than that, and how disgusted she was and saying, see, this is what happens when you don't do your homework, you don't check out your facts, and you shoot the guy down. Well, how did that make you feel?
Well, this was my major concern with the council. I couldn't understand why they would vote to remove me without asking me what happened. And I couldn't understand why they would vote to remove me without at least investigating or looking at what's going on here. So that was the reason I came back to essentially provide my side of the story and to make sure they understood what was going on, because it appeared the major issue was they were removing me because of your contract.
Okay, for the record, you're a registered Republican voter.
That's correct.
Deb Denys is a registered Republican, and the county council seats are nonpartisan, but let's face it, the parties are involved in pushing their candidates. You are a prominent citizen, you're a Republican donor in terms of contributing to campaigns. You were an active Denny supporter in 2012. You even gave her a contribution leading for her. She had a fundraiser at the Hampton Inn subsequent after your thing, and you gave her a donation.
Well, I gave her a donation.
How much was it?
I gave her a donation in 2012, I guess, when she ran. I believe it was $300.
No, but I mean the one in.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
And I went, and this is what was strange. I had been reappointed on the 21st.
Of September.
No. I'd been reappointed on the 21st, I believe it was, or 19th, something like that, of August.
Right.
So I was back on the board. I had been reappointed or reelected by my board members.
By your peers.
By my peers at the, about a week before Denny's fundraiser at the Hampton Inn on a Wednesday night. And I went to her fundraiser, again, supporting her election, attempted to talk to her, and she brushed me off. I thought she was just busy. Talked to a lot of other people, including Joey Alexander and former council member Jack Heyman, and left, leaving another $300 contribution.
Now,
The next day was the council meeting,
yeah,
and
we'll get to that. Okay, so you show up at the Hampton Inn, and for the record, the Hampton Inn is run by the general manager of the Hampton Inn is who?
Tony Stagney, who's a board member of the SVAA.
Like you, an appointee of a county council vote based on a recommendation of a particular council member that has a turn in a rotation.
Yes.
So one could ask, why would one hold a fundraiser there to begin with and have that specter of having the general manager be an accommodator and put yourself in that position?
Well, that's a question Ms. Denys probably needs to answer.
Right.
But I want to contrast this, that the fundraiser that I went to the previous year in 2012 was held at the Yacht Club. So it was kind of a neutral site.
And yeah, totally independent. Now we got to make this quick as we've got to get this segment finished. The next day, after that fundraiser, you get the cold shoulder at night. You figured, well, maybe she's just tired. It's a long day. The next morning, the next day, there's a county council meeting. Miss Denys, out of nowhere, stuns the dais, the audience, and the public at large with, "We've got to finish this. Palmer Wilson needs to be removed. I've got complaints coming out of the woodwork." She doesn't say where the complaints are from. No names. And in hindsight, we recognize this was an initial letter writing campaign going back to August, and some criticisms from some people in Edgewater, for example, on the combination, where they didn't fully meet the requirements for full overnight stays and things like that, but it was always expected to get this kind of funding. So here you are, you have to make the tough choices on things. And the insiders are the ones pushing this. The allegation, and of course we're really looking at the issue, is selling your soul to take care of the insiders and betraying you. How'd that make you feel?
Well, I didn't feel good. I mean, that's something you'll have to, press Ms. Denys to answer. But
As far as Ms. Denys is concerned, that's a closed chapter. She says that there are allegations about you that she had to do this. Of course, she's no definition of what they are. And being a typical politician and doublespeak, no definition of, what are these allegations? What have you done wrong? And why isn't she addressing them if they're important?
Well, the first issue that I think you need to understand is my reelection as board chair was a result of the board's action. The fact that somebody in the city or the county doesn't particularly like that I'm the board chair.
That's not their position to even say that.
Yeah, that should not be subject for removal. Now you're micromanaging a board.
As opposed to a director or a
Correct.
staffer.
The statements that I understand she made, I was not present nor was I listening to her, but when listening to the tapes and all, the statements that she made about what I had alleged to have done at this recent board meeting were totally false.
Strong-arming the board, getting somebody that wasn't in attendance out of nowhere to track them down so that they could get an extra vote to put you in. That person had been there by phone and was disconnected by the secretary, and it was the attorney who said, get it back on, let's finish this vote, correct?
That's correct. This person had participated in a very long meeting by phone. I brought up the section that we need to re-elect the entire board officers because it's in the policies and procedures. The fact that the executive director didn't bother to read the policies and procedures and was stunned by my suggestion is not my problem. When I made this observation, I said we need to have an election. I was the county attorney sitting there reinforced it and said I was absolutely correct. We held this election and the lady was still on the phone, but when they went to get her vote, unfortunately the office manager, Sherry Hendershot, somehow disconnected her from the phone. The county attorney, not me,
Doug
the county
Griffin,
attorney, Doug
deputy county
Griffin,
attorney assigned to you.
sitting there, directed that she recall her on the phone and we re-vote. We re-voted. Ms. Hendershot brought the phone
And it
over
broke a
so
tie.
everybody could hear it, and she was the fifth vote. Now, whether she was there or not, you know, the chances of her vote changing were probably next to nil because that was her position. She'd listened to the whole argument. She knew what was going on. The fact that it was brought up was conformance to policy, not individual desires.
And in hindsight, it was Carl Watson, the new director, who was pushing the board. You'll hear it on the actual audio recordings. We've got to get this taken care of today. We need a new chair. Knowing full well that a county vote was going to come that afternoon, and it was clear as day.
No, you're confusing. That's the subsequent meeting.
Right.
And that was a meeting before this. So
That's
you
right.
have to put this in perspective. I had the August 8th meeting. I get removed. I go to the council 2 weeks later. The morning of the day I'm at the council, Mr. Watson holds an alleged
Right.
emergency meeting of which there's little justification based on the
Purchasing
agenda.
furniture, which was already discussed.
Yes, yeah, there's little justification for the reason for this. But not only did he do that, but he allowed public participation, and then he brought Mr. Frank DeMarchi and Black Crow in, who were not on the agenda, to do that. But he insisted upon voting for a chair.
And he allowed public participation, which mainly was the chamber insiders complaining, we don't have money.
Yes, that's
so
correct.
it's almost like a backdoor kind of thing of, hey,
Well, I mean, you can make that assumption. I'm basing it on the facts, and the facts are that if you look at the agenda, there was no real need for any of that to be emergency, and most importantly, he did not have to vote a chair. The reason being is the vice chair, by the policy and procedures and Robert's rules, takes over responsibility for the chair in the chair's absence. So they could have waited for the next scheduled meeting, whether I went back to the council, whether I was reappointed or not, and voted for a new chair. Then they would have been in compliance with the policy and procedures, which I brought up at the last meeting. Let me add this real quick. There was absolutely no strong arming. I could have easily lost the vote. I was merely doing what I'd been doing for the entire time on the board, was trying to get them to follow the rules.
and to be clear, Denny's made the accusation that you were strong-arming the board, but if you listen to the audio, you're actually commended by your colleagues on the board that it wasn't you that's the issue, it's the issue of us as a board, meaning your SVA board, versus the community at large, where there's confusion about what their roles are, and that it's not just handing out money, it's being accountable for what the purpose of the board is.
The vast majority of the letters of complaints fell into two categories, either complaining about your contract or complaining about the fact that they didn't get the money they wanted in a grant, and they were blaming me for the grant award.
And these people were the same insiders that have been critical all along of any opportunity to change what's been there for years.
Well, some were and some weren't. But the point of the matter is that in any board action, the board as a chair, I cannot make a motion, I cannot second a motion. So when you get to grants and a grant applicant comes up and says, I want X amount of dollars, let's say 20,000, and the board has interviews and we have some discussion, then a board member makes a proposal, a motion, and the motion gets seconded to give him less money, you can't blame me for that. That's the board responding.
Okay.